Well, it looks like the cash pipeline to Kyiv has just hit this major roadblock. President Donald Trump ordering a freeze on all military aid to Ukraine, which means no new shipments of ammunition, no vehicles, no gear, including all those deals that have been locked in back when Joe Biden was running the show. So the White House spinning it as a move for peace. An American government official has explained it like this. The president has been very clear. He wants a solution, not just endless aid, is what the official said. Now, how does that translate? Well, that Trump is taking a hard look at where all those billions of dollars are actually going before signing off any more checks. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen isn't quite waiting around. She's pushing a bold new plan to supercharge EU military spending, letting the European nations tap into a massive 150 billion euro loan fund to gear up for whatever is going to come up next. Well, you should have seen those defense stocks move on such a down day across European bourses, and that was the underlying story. But what triggered all of this, that fiery showdown that took place, that set the stage for all of this, the now infamous Trump-Zelensky Oval Office clash? And that wasn't just a diplomatic tiff, it was a full-blown explosion. Trump accusing Ukraine's leader of playing chicken with World War III. So with tensions running high, Europe scrambling to fill the gap that the US is creating, we may see a pause, but we aren't sure if it's going to be peaceful. Not on the battleground and certainly not in the markets. Hence, we need to buckle up to dissect that what we have right now playing before us. Dr. Richard Benkin is joining us. He's a senior journalist. He's a geopolitical analyst and really no stranger to the hard truths of international diplomacy. Dr. Benkin, welcome to India Tonight here on ET Now. Good to have you with us. The US clearly effectively pausing Ukraine's lifeline of military aid. Trump making it clear that peace is his priority, even if it means pushing Ukraine towards a deal with Putin. In which case, is this really a genuine push for peace, or is there a larger strategic play at work on Trump's part?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, and namaskar to you and your viewers. I'm not sure where all this confusion comes from, why people are focusing on this. Think about it. How different is what Donald Trump doing right now to Ukraine? How different is that from what Joe Biden did to Israel by withholding critical weapons because he didn't care for the way that Israel was conducting its military operations? So I think we have to, first of all, take a step back, take a breath, and look at this in a broader context, which is really important because if you think about it, geopolitically, the most dangerous development over the last 4 years was the strengthening of what we might call the axis of authoritarianism, an alliance among authoritarian regimes, China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, opposing the democratic world order, certainly exemplified by the United States, India, Israel, EU, things like that. And what Donald Trump has been doing, among other things, just one aspect of it is, he's the first person now to start maybe forming some cracks in that alliance. Right. After all, he's giving Russia some incentive, and he has. They talked about this even more than the Ukraine war as a reset of U.S.-Russia relationships. By the way, something that my Indian colleagues have been telling me for years would be a very, very good move and a very appropriate move for the United States to take. Now, with regard to what the invasion of Ukraine and all that, let's hold that aside because I don't want to seem to be saying that that's okay. Right. What we have to look at is realpolitik and what this means in that broader context. So, again, before jumping on this or thinking about what supposed pundits say, let's remember they're playing checkers. Donald Trump is playing chess.
Right. So clearly, I mean, there is a game at play, whether it's chess or checkers. Now, that is something that time will reveal. But Trump has criticized Zelensky for saying that the war is very, very far away from ending. So is he pushing Ukraine to accept terms that could be humiliating, even dangerous, you think? What's the game plan, according to you?
Humiliating, that's the sort of stuff of things that people throw out prior to negotiations. Let's remember, first of all, Trump promised the American people he would end the war in Ukraine. He also, and what that also means is he promised the continuous flow of funds from the United States to fund that war. And by the way, just so your viewers know, our national debt, our national debt is now, I think, $36 trillion. At this point, the United States spends more money every year merely paying the interest on that debt than we do for defense. Now think about that a minute. So this is really something else we have to look at.
Yes.
What's happening to that money, and is that money going to a good cause? So far, those people who have criticized President Trump over this have not yet been able to provide another option for peace.
But Mr.
And
Benkin,
we're still waiting for that.
yes.
It seems that the game plan for
Yes.
the EU and others is keep the war going with U.S. taxpayer money, keep it funded, keep it going until both sides are exhausted. What they fail to remember is that Russia has a lot more assets they can exhaust than Ukraine.
Right.
So I think in the end, if we don't have a negotiated peace, it'll probably be worse for Ukraine.
So this is at a point where we wonder where it can get any worse for Ukraine, and you're saying it is possible. So as far as the U.S. is concerned, do you see a broader shift in foreign policy under Trump, away from military interventions towards economic deal-making, like Vice President Vance is putting it? He's calling it American economic upside in Ukraine, and that is what he's offering as the best security guarantee.
Absolutely. I mean, look at what President Trump has proposed. Let the United States have access to those rare earths and other minerals that Ukraine has. Number one, we know that we really need that. We want to break our dependence on China for these minerals and rare earths. And there are a lot of different ways to do it. One is, of course, to access these minerals in Ukraine. What that does, instead of the United States risking its blood and treasure, pouring billions and billions of more dollars into Ukraine, it puts Americans and American interests on the ground inside Ukraine. And however people want to characterize President Putin, I don't think he's going to willy-nilly feel okay about taking military action that could, in fact, kill Americans. So it's a security guarantee, if you will, that doesn't involve the United States just throwing money at it, which is something U.S. taxpayers are kind of sick of.
Yes. But what about Europe? Now, Ursula von der Leyen is saying that Europe is ready to step up. But let's be real. Does Europe even have that military muscle or the political will or even the economic stamina to replace the U.S. in supporting Ukraine?
No, in fact, you're absolutely right, sir. She says that Europe's going to step up. Show me. I'd like to see it. I don't know how they're going to do it. That you've got a few countries with decent militaries, whether it's UK, France, Germany, and of course Poland, which is a real rising power in Europe. But other than that, those countries are going to have a lot of dead weight that they got to pull along. Countries that, at least for the past several decades, have been more committed to big government social programs than their own defense.
But even as we see all of this play out, Europe, the US, all taking these stances, and you're saying these are games and strategies being played, what about Russia? Putin is watching all of this. How do you think he's interpreting Trump's move? Does this embolden him, like many are saying?
Well, I think yes and no. There have been two different interpretations of what happened in that Trump-Zelensky White House blow-up. There are those who have said, oh, it emboldens Putin because he sees that Zelensky is on the outs with Trump, and Trump's willing to throw him under the bus. There are others who say this is a message to Putin, and for that matter, to Xi Jinping of China, that Trump's just not going to take any crap. He's not going to tie himself to assumptions of what old assumptions of what policy should be. And he's going to take, as he puts it, that America first approach. So there are a lot of different ways to look at it. Secondly, I also find it interesting that I am receiving this question about Russia from India, because India has done a masterful job, absolutely masterful job over the last several years of maintaining its historical relations with Russia, and in fact helping to fund Russia's war by buying energy, and that's fine. But it's maintained those strong relations while in fact without abandoning its obligations as a democratic ally.
But does it get tricky now? Now that we're seeing this shift take place and that entire outburst that took place in the Oval Office, now for India to say that we're on the side of peace, does that get tricky?
No, I don't think it's tricky at all. I think India has always been on the side of peace.
So if I was to ask you very quickly, and one word, biggest winner of this US policy shift, Russia, Europe or China? Mr. Benkin.
I'd say the American people.
And the biggest loser, Ukraine, NATO, or the US itself?
China.
Trump's next move on Ukraine, back to negotiations or back to full-scale support?
Look, wars end in one of two ways: either a military victory by one party over the other, or negotiations. This is not going to end in a military victory for Ukraine. It's going to end through negotiations, and ultimately that's what they're going to have to go back to.
One word to describe Trump's foreign policy, Mr. Benkin: isolationist, strategic, or unpredictable?
I was going to say strategic until you said unpredictable. But no, there is some predictability to it, so I would say strategic.
Mr. Benkin, this is a seismic shift in U.S. foreign policy. The fate of Ukraine hangs in the balance. Europe is trying to step up. India is, of course, watching it all with strategic caution. There's no doubt that the world is entering this new phase of geopolitical chess, or it could be checkers, like you said. But as ever, we'll be tracking every move, every twist, every consequence. Thank you for joining us with your sharp insights and straight talk here on India Tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.